Share tweet Google WhatsApp Ding Reddit stumble upon mail. The iconic Aston Martin, which Sir Paul McCartney owned at the height of the Beatles' success, is set to sell for a staggering £1.5 million. McCartney was just 22 when he bought the Aston Martin DB5 in 1964. He was part of the biggest pop group the world had ever seen and had just finished filming A Hard Day's Night. Paul McCartney's old Aston Martin, which he owned at the height of the Beatles' success, is set to sell for £1.5 million. The singer ordered it shortly before going on a tour, and it was delivered on September the 22nd, just a few days after the premiere of Goldfinger, where Sean Connery's James Bond drove a DB5. McCartney kept the Aston Martin for 6 years, racking up more than 40,000 miles during this period. It was last sold publicly in 2012 when a collector bought it for £344,000. But it is set to sell for more than 4 times as much in December when Bonhams auctions it off in Bond Street, London. Bonhams has given it a guide price of £1.2 million to £1.5 million, more than 350 times the £3,800 McCartney paid for it 53 years ago. Paul McCartney's old Aston Martin, which he owned at the height of the Beatles' success, is set to sell for £1.5 million. The car has undergone an overhaul since it was last sold and is now silver, like James Bond's Aston, and the green interior has been replaced with red leather. The engine has been replaced with a more powerful 4.2-litre unit which will give it a top speed of more than 150 miles per hour. Tim Schofield, from the Bonhams motoring department, described the DB5 as a 60s icon for a 60s icon. Paul McCartney's old Aston Martin, which he owned at the height of the Beatles' success, is set to sell for £1.5 million. He said the Aston Martin DB5 has to be one of the most recognisable British motorcars in the world, especially when finished in the beautiful silver birchwood colour combination, made so popular by James Bond. This is a stunning example, beauty restored, which also has the interesting history of having been owned by one of the most celebrated pop stars in history, Sir Paul McCartney. Both Sean Connery and Daniel Craig have driven gadget-laden versions of British sports car in the 007 film franchise, with the Aston always having the same registration, BMT216A. Paul McCartney's old Aston Martin, which he owned at the height of the Beatles' success, is set to sell for £1.5 million. McCartney's old DB5 has the registration 64 Mac after its famous former owner and boasts a Philips record player and Motorola radio player. If the Aston Martin is too expensive for a Beatles fan looking for a car, then Bonhams is also selling Ringo Starr's old 1966 Mini, for around £120,000. Ticket to ride. Paul McCartney spotted sitting alone on a train out of London. It may worry you that much of our main press is increasingly reporting with a strong right-wing bias. Most of our media is owned by a handful of offshore billionaires with personal agendas. More worrying is the staggering decline in independent, investigative journalism. It costs a lot to produce, so many publications facing an uncertain future can no longer fund it. With nobody to hold the rich and powerful to account, or report on the issues that don't fit with the main narrative, your help is needed. You can help support free, independent journalism for as little as 50p. Every penny we collect from donations supports vital investigative journalism. Share tweet Google WhatsApp Ding Reddit stumble upon mail.